Okay, this video should serve as a way to clarify on some of the rules in case you're unsure of my expectations for each assignment. I'm going to go through the entire assignment and clarify everything and provide you with some examples. So, Mr. B's trees. Mr. B has some trees that are filled with noisy bees, and when he goes out, he sees what shakes him to his knees, and he says, "What are these? Get rid of them, would you please?" And so he agrees to get rid of the trees so he can catch some Z's. Now, what this really means, there are 5 large pine trees, each with a trunk 1 foot in diameter, in Mr. B's backyard that he wants to get rid of. I want you to kind of consider and think about one large pine tree with 1 foot in diameter, probably about 20 feet tall, maybe a little bit taller. He does not want to catch the bees, so your task is to find 5 different ways to remove a single tree from his yard without having to leave his house. Each solution must be written in at least 5 complete sentences and accompanied with a picture. Your sentences should be written at a high school level. And I'm going to go into the points breakdown, which is listed right here. For each of your 5 solutions, there are 4 points, so it's 20 points total. 3 points will come from your sentences, and 1 point will come from the picture. For your sentences, 3 points for each sentence being viable and real-world possible. And we'll discuss what that means down below. I have a bunch of rules and constraints that are required. And you will lose 1 point for each impracticality used or lack of complete explanation of how something happened. And you will lose a half point for each missing sentence entirely. And there is also 1 point for each picture that goes along with them. And I will explain what I want for that as well. So your constraints. Number 1. 5 different ways to get rid of at least one single tree. You can use each method or solution only once, and the tree will regrow between solutions. To make things easier, imagine there's only 1 tree for each of your 5 solutions. So for solution 1, how are you going to get rid of 1 tree? For solution 2, how are you going to get rid of 1 tree? Getting rid of the bees does not count as a solution. You must get rid of the tree because if the tree is still there, the bees will regenerate and come back. Constraint number 2, there is a 1-year time constraint. So whatever you have to do has to be accomplished within a 365-day period. So from January 1st to January 1st of the following year. Mr. B and his house must survive at the end of the solution. That's pretty straightforward, and I don't want to take ideas away from you regarding the removing of a tree, so instead I'll talk about shoveling a driveway as it's currently snowing out, at least on this day in this year. So he must survive at the end of the solution. I couldn't call in a nuclear bomb because that would obliterate my house as well. If I were trying to come up with ways to remove snow from my driveway, nuclear bomb doesn't work because I won't survive. Also, I cannot leave, or Mr. B cannot leave his house. So you can't say he goes out and shovels his driveway because that would require him to leave his house. The tree is beyond throwing distance. No matter how strong you are, I don't care if you're Tom Brady, you cannot throw anything to the tree. That is a hard defined rule. And for other solutions, if you're trying to think about, okay, well, how far is it? I'm going to define it as 100 meters away. Even if you find a way to throw it more than 100 meters with your arm, it's still not allowed. You cannot throw. I'll rephrase it like that. The solutions must be possible. No wizards coming and blowing the snow off of my driveway or magicking the snow off of my driveway. You must explain every step. This is the most important part of the assignment. No buttons setting off a bomb blowing up the snow in my driveway without A, telling me what kind of bomb it is, how did you obtain the bomb, how did you get the bomb to the driveway if you can't leave your house, and how is that bomb connected to a remote that I mysteriously have? All of those steps need to be explained and thought through. That's the entire purpose of this assignment. is to start thinking along the engineering process. What could go wrong? How can you prevent those things from going wrong? That's your ultimate goal. You have $1,000 for each solution. Solution 1, you have $1,000. You need to come up with a way to get the snow out of your driveway. And let's say in solution 1, I spend $500 hiring a snowplow company to come plow my driveway. I was within the budget for solution 1. Solution 2, you get $1,000. That $500 that you didn't use in solution 1 does not carry over. So $1,000 for each of your 5 solutions with no carryovers. No use of the deep web or dark web. You can't say he orders a grenade launcher off of the dark web because it's unreliable and I'm just ruling it out right off the bat. If you order something that is not something that's easily orderable off of Amazon or eBay, those are your bread and butter sites for this. If you cannot figure out where it's coming from, you can't just say, I know that it's available on the dark web. That doesn't count. And this also helps keep you in line with the $1,000 constraint. If you're ordering a grenade launcher off of eBay, let's say you happen to find one on there, and it is functional, but it costs $10,000, those 3 rules kind of work together to keep you within that constraint. No control of free will. That includes nature and of people. So you can't say that a tornado comes through and cleans off my driveway. You can't control where the tornado goes, and you can't control that there would even be a tornado in the first place. As far as people, it needs to be something that's going to pass the 50% rule. And what I mean by that is when we discuss these in class next week, you should plan on something that more than 50% of students would agree to. So I can't say I will call Mr. Foltz and tell him to bring a shovel to shovel my driveway, because why would he drive 1 hour, spend an hour shoveling my driveway, and then drive an hour home? Mr. Foltz is nice. He's not that nice. Now, you could tweak that and say, I call Mr. Foltz and offer him $1,000. He then comes to shovel my driveway, brings his own shovel, and then goes home after collecting the $1,000 out of the mailbox. Or I guess you can't get to the mailbox, so you have to find another way to get him the money. I don't see why he can't come to your front step, but that's too much of a hint, I think. So if 50% of the class thinks that, yes, I would do that for that, then that's not controlling free will, because majority rules. They rule in your favor. They agree with you. They say that that's practical. All right, the backstory. As you go through your 5 solutions, as you get through solution 1, 2, and 3, your ideas will become much more limited. That's the challenge of this assignment. Everyone can come up with the first 2 relatively easily, but then it gets harder and harder as you go along and you've ruled out your ideas. And while I'm talking about that, I'm going to go back to this where I say you can use each method or solution only once. You can only, for example, I can say I pay my neighbor $1,000 to shovel my driveway. Of course, they're going to go for that. You can't follow that up with your second solution saying, I call Mr. Foltz and ask him to come shovel my driveway. Your solution is still, I pay person to shovel my driveway. That's still the same single solution in both of those situations. You could tweak it, however, and say, okay, I pay my neighbor to shovel my driveway. And in the second solution, I call a plow company and hire them to plow it. Those are 2 different ideas, at least in my head. If you are at all confused about whether 2 ideas are different ideas or the same idea just with a slight modification, please feel free to email me and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. And that comes back to your backstory. Again, as you get towards solutions 3, 4, and 5, especially after what we just talked about, they should get significantly harder to come up with a unique idea that is real world possible. and that you can do meeting all of these other constraints. So for that reason, I'm allowing one and only one backstory that doesn't overlap to your other solutions, and you can't use any other backstories for your other solutions. So once I get to my fifth one, I've used all of the reasonable ones I can think of. I think, okay, let's get creative. Let's give Mr. B a backstory. He was in World War II, which is becoming less and less likely based on how long ago that was. But he saved I don't even know if I want to say this in a video. He saved an AK-47 and a bunch of rounds of ammunition from World War II, and he kept them in his basement, and he used them to blast the snow off of his driveway. That's a viable backstory. I don't know that it's a viable solution because each round would get rid of a very, very small amount of snow. So I think I would rule that out for being real-world practical. But the backstory would work in that situation. I guess a better example would be I don't know. I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to give you too many ideas. I want you to be able to think freely. Which brings us to our last rule. This is just an explanation of what I want for the photo. Because I'm such a visual person and a visual learner, you must have at least one picture for each of your 5 solutions. So since you have 5 solutions, 1 picture, 5 pictures total. The picture can be drawn if you are artistic and you want to be a little bit creative with this, or you can just get the picture from Google, because the only purpose of this picture is because I want to know what I'm going to be reading about before I start reading about it. So if you hire your neighbor to shovel your driveway, just put a picture of a shovel. That tells me, okay, he's shoveling. I know what he's doing. That makes my life super easy. So don't go crazy with the picture unless you really enjoy it. And I think that covers everything I need to discuss with this. If you do have any questions on any of the rules, please feel free to email me and I will get back to you as soon as I see it. Aside from that, thanks.